So is it your driving you're blaming it on?
I guess you could say that.
All right, so here we are. I'm gonna work on this bike today, or probably just pick through it, maybe start it. But I've had a lot of issues starting this thing. Get some thinking fuel here. Yeah, so I'm just gonna recap what I've been doing here. Check back my other videos. I got like 3 of them, unfortunately, of me just blowing it and rebuilding things and whatever. But check out the starter videos for this 2002 Sportster hardtail. Yeah, I'll go over this whole bike once it's ripping and roaring and it's nice outside. But yeah, recap, starting issues. All right, this thing, let's see. It started by, every time I'd go to fire it, it would make this crazy clunking sound, like the gears weren't connecting, or the gear was slamming into another gear. That was the sound it was making. I'd go to fire it, it'd just be doom, doom, and then start. Or like the gears were hitting and then lining up and then going. This motor is a high compression engine, or top end. So I figured it was that was probably part of the problem, and I don't know, I just went down the rabbit hole with that one, but it just got worse. So it got to the point where it like wouldn't start, or it would randomly start, or it just stopped shooting out. The starter stopped engaging with the flywheel. So I took the starter out, came to the conclusion that the gear inside of there was bad, and I replaced that, put it back in the bike. It's doing the same thing but worse. So I had to take the primary off again. I inspected everything just to double, triple, make sure, and then I figured out that I put parts to the bearing in there wrong. So that's fine. That was my fault. Just me being an idiot, not looking at any schematics, just going for it. Let's see. So I put the starter back in, buttoned it all up, fired up. Still a little sluggish, but it worked better. So at that point, I'm like, okay, starts, does all the things it needs to do. Maybe the battery's bad, but I bought a new battery last year or before this summer for the riding season. So I started going down that rabbit hole, and then I figured out that I'm blowing it and I'm just not using the right battery. It's not enough cold cranking amps. Check that video out. I did one on batteries. I'm just trying to do videos on stuff I'm learning as I go. Turns out I need to learn a lot, apparently. It sucks. But now, yeah, so now I bought a battery, a lithium battery for this thing, because I figured it'd be hard cranking amps, turn the motor over better, and then this thing will charge it up, no problems. It's a Sportster, so it shouldn't have any problems. Everything's pretty much new on this thing at this point. And went to fire it up, it was way worse, super sluggish, and then I let it warm up just to get the battery, let the battery charge up, turn it off, went to start again, no power. So I don't know what the heck's going on. So I put the battery on the tender, a lithium tender, by the way. Battery charged back up fine, and then turn the key to accessory, lights everything back up. And I clamped the battery on instead of bolting it down to test everything. And I haven't tried to start it again. I don't really want to. I just want to figure it out. So now I'm at the point where I got to figure out what's going on. So now I'm thinking maybe the relay is bad. the key switch may be bad, or I got those two things wired up incorrectly somehow. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm pretty stumped, but I'm going to figure it out. I got to take the seat off. Maybe my wiring is jostled around and touching and arcing all over the place. Could be the problem. I don't know. We're going to figure it out. Here we go. So first off, I got to take this seat off, but I want to talk about the seat. So part of this YouTube channel is to just tell you my experience with the things that I bought, because everybody's buying these. I mean, this bike is all stuff that people are buying from a website, unfortunately. But this seat, everyone's getting them. You know, they're a good deal, good price. They're great quality. I have no problems other than the way that I set it up. And I'm assuming everyone else who is like me and just buys stuff and just sets it up and has no idea about other ways to do things or whatever. If you're not mechanically inclined, you're going to set it up like this. I just did it because I'm a tightwad and it came with all that stuff. And I said, screw it, I'm going to just throw it in there like the way they said. But the whole problem for me is I can't get underneath there. I got my electronics under there and I put them to where I didn't have to ever deal with them because I didn't think I'd need to ever. And the battery's on the bottom, so why would I need to mess with a fuse or something? If I need to mess with a fuse, I'll just reach my hand up there and figure it out. But yeah, so the way this seat is, hang on, let me adjust this. The way this seat is, I got it bolted, bolt, and then I Velcroed this part. Because you're supposed to have a bolt in the back underneath the fender, which I'm never going to do that. So my recommendation is do not bolt this thing in. Get one of these, a seat hinge. My idea is to put this in, but at the same time, I'm pretty lazy. But yeah, that's just a little side note about seats. Great seat, you should get it. Just set it up properly so you can whip the seat up and down whenever you want. Whee! Seat's off. And I was looking around here. Nothing looks bad. I figured maybe it got wrestled around a little bit. Yeah, everything looks pretty good. I know it looks like a nest of stuff, but it's pretty organized. I got the relay right here that I need to maybe check. And whatever the heck that thing's called, I'll remember it. But yeah, everything looks pretty sturdy. This is tight. That was my main concern. Yeah, I'm gonna check the continuity or whatever the heck it's called on some of this stuff before I start tearing into it. All right, here is the relay that was in the bike. This is part of the problem, I think, but it could be the way I wired it. This is supposed to bypass the key, so full cranking amps from the battery doesn't go straight to the key. The key just tells the battery to go to the starter. But I might have it wired wrong. But I wanted to test to see if this was broken, so here it is. Also, I can't figure out if this is 12 amps, what kind of amperage this is. It doesn't say on there. I'd have to look up all these numbers on Google, and I don't have that kind of time. Saying that, let's test this bad boy. I'll do it for you. So usually just do the two side circuits. And from all the internet Googling I've been doing, that should be good. As long as it's reading over a certain amount, which who knows what it is. I think it's over 50. But I also might have it on a different setting. This thing doesn't have the one everyone kept saying, the setting for it. Otherwise, I got this brand new one. I'm just gonna throw this one in there. I got this one for that bike when I wire it. So no harm, no foul. Brand new, never fails. So now I'm gonna test the fuse. I got it down there. I already got it touched. So that's touching. It goes to 0. So that means the fuse is good. I probably should replace it since I'm dicking around with this, but I don't think so. I think it's good. See, look at that, 0. All right, on to the key. Boy, I'm sitting here doing all kinds of research and homework on wiring. I'm like doodling freaking notes down, trying to see where all my wires are going. Looking at my freaking key switch and things are falling apart. Wires are coming out. I'm just gonna rewire it. I think I got it twisted up somehow. So I'm pretty bummed, but all right, so I just chugged along. I just got my bike done. You get to a point where you just don't want to film anymore and talk about it. You just want to get through it and try to make things happen. I'm just going to recap what I did, just talk about it, because I feel like a lot of people might have this issue. If they get down the rabbit hole like I did, maybe you'll get something out of it. So first off, I'm having starting issues. So I buy a battery. I'm thinking I'm just not getting enough cranking amps to the starter. It's not happy. It's just struggling. I got that lithium battery. Well, the lithium battery just straight away, I'd crank it over and the thing would crank up fine and it would still kind of do whatever it was doing before, but then I'd go to crank it again and it would be lights out. I couldn't even turn the lights on. I put on the charger, same thing happened. So then I'm thinking, well, maybe something in the wiring's going. Maybe the fuse is blowing out. So then I get to the point where I'm thinking, screw it, I'm just gonna rewire my bike. And that's where I was just at. I just rewired the bike. In doing so, I figured out that the relay was wired wrong, which, you know, whatever, still wouldn't really cause a failure, but maybe. But here's how I wired it. All right, so this is how I wired my bike. I'm just gonna go over with you. First off, always start at the battery. Ground goes to your frame and your motor. So find a bolt that connects them both and ground your frame. Next, I like to wire my battery to a fuse in case anything happens. And then the stator to the regulator and the regulator to the other side of this fuse. That's kind of where it all starts for me. 30 from this relay runs to there. The green wire from your starter on your Sportster will go to 87. And I did 85 as ground. I ground that to the motor and to the frame. 86 goes to the key switch, which goes to the start position. And that's how you get the starter to go. Oh, almost forgot. The big wire from the starter goes straight to the battery. Don't forget that. That's important. Then you need this to get some power, some juice. Put that to the fuse. So where one of my issues started was I had the relay wired up wrong and the key switch, I think, wired up wrong. But my other key, the connections weren't very good. So now I have it proper. And the whole reason you have a relay is so you have the full cranking amps, this way, go into the starter when you need to start it. So when you're turning the key on, the starter is drawing power from the battery. Instead of turning the key on, the starter's draining from the key from the battery like that. The whole point of having a relay is to have all your power going from the battery to the starter and staying away from your key switch, because your key switch doesn't need to have all the cranking amps from the battery going through it to the starter. That'll cause your key to break down the road. And I think that was part of my problem, is I just had the full cranking amps going through the key, and it kind of bogged it down. All right, so that's how I wired it. So I must have been in a hurry and wired it all up, had all the wiring hand on my bike, you know, when it wasn't painted or anything. It fired up, or it jumped the starter, and I was just like, that's it, full send, button it up, throw it in the bike, and that's how I've been running it for like 2 seasons. So, saying that, the key switch was very, very crappy in the back. The screws, it had the type where you screw into a tab, and it had like 1.5 threads at the most. So some of those would get loose, and I just didn't like it. So I got a cheaper 12 volt key switch, like a general one. So that one has really good bolt on the back, so the connections are good, and I waterproofed it and all that. So now I know the relay's good and the key switch is good, and the wiring is definitely good. Saying all that, the bike is square that way. And then I go to turn it back on, does the same thing. Starts up, go to start it again, and the freaking battery. And all I could hear was all those comments and all the people, you know, on both of my sides just being like, you shouldn't get those lithium batteries. You shouldn't do that. Those things suck. They catch on fire. Well, I'm not gonna say they're right, but screw it. I sent that thing back. Sent it back to old Jeff Bezos. Screw those things. I also called Hammer Performance, where I got my top end, and asked the guy, what do they recommend for batteries? And the first thing he said was, I don't trust those lithium batteries, and I would never recommend them. Take a hike, Lithium. So I put my old battery back in. I charged that thing up. That thing actually charged. I put it on a setting on a charger, and it rebucculated it. I don't really know. It just recharged it somehow, and it's back to full cranking amps. And the bike starts. Starts great, but it still whines every time I start it. It'll just go wah, and the motor will kind of half chug start. So at this point, I'm thinking new starter, but I think I'm just going to get a little bit bigger of a battery, an AGM battery, and see what happens. But I'm not going to do it right this second. I'm going to wait. I think I'm going to get the bigger battery and then see what that does to the starter. I doubt it's going to fix it. I think after changing the solenoid, whatever the bearing inside of the starter, greasing it up and all that, I don't think I want to go as far as, I don't think I want to go as far as like redoing the electrical side of it, with the brushes in it. I'll just get a new one. So saying that, ongoing starter saga. Pretty bummed. I wish I was going on to another bike working on that stuff, but this is trials and tribulations of choppers. But yeah, like and subscribe. Keep on following me. Go to Instagram. Let's make fun of things together. Make fun of me. Make fun of life. Tell me about how cool your Sportster is and how it never, ever, ever has had a problem. You paint flames on it and it just rips. And yeah, to the next one. Dang it.
I got quite a bit of air when I came down on the ground. It's like I was soaring for a while, so I was tickling the throttle, making sure I still had a motor underneath of me.